On the broadcast tonight, officials from South and North Korea meet for the highest level talks in years. Does this mark a potential upswing in cooperation? We have the latest. Former Japanese Prime Minister Tomiichi Muraya believes the current Japanese leader will honor an apology he issued back in 1995 for the nation's colonization and invasion of Asian countries in the early 20th century. And of course, Sochi 2014, with Lee Sang-hwa setting a new Olympic record on a way to defending her 500-meter speed skating crown. Team Korea sails into day 5 of medal events with high hopes for more. This is Early Edition at 6.
It is 4 a.m. in Washington, 1 p.m. in Sochi, and 6 on a Wednesday evening here in Seoul. Welcome to Early Edition at 6. I'm Moon Gon-young.
And I'm Daniel Che. Thank you for joining us.
Now, we're going to begin with the fresh round of diplomacy between the two Koreas. Senior officials from South and North Korea are locked in high-level talks behind the closed doors right now at the South Korean side of the truce village of Panmunjom.
The meeting, the first between the North and South in several years, comes a matter of days ahead of a round of reunions for families separated since the Korean War. For more details, we are going to connect live to our correspondent Hwang Sung-hee at the Unification Ministry. So, Sung-hee, what's the latest?
Good evening, guys. Officials have been engaged in discussions since 10 a.m. this morning, and it looks like they're still trying to narrow down their differences. The two sides have only held 2 sessions so far, the opening session and the afternoon session, and no separate discussions between the two chief delegates. The afternoon session was adjourned about 2 hours ago. Now, some are pointing to a lack of communication at today's talks, but an official at the Unification Ministry said that the two Koreas are not yet at the stage of reaching an agreement as they came to the meeting with different interests in mind. He said the chief delegates usually hold separate discussions when they're close to wrapping up the meeting. Today's talks is the first high-level meeting between the two Koreas in 7 years, and not much detail is being given to the reporters here, as the government is trying to keep it low while the talks are underway. The meeting was proposed by North Korea last Saturday to discuss pressing inter-Korean issues. Guys?
No, Sung-hee, as you said, the only thing that we know at this point is that the two Koreas are trying to iron out their differences. Now, but what can we expect that could have been discussed during this meeting today?
Kanyang, it is very rare to see the two Koreas engage in discussions without a fixed agenda. However, South Korea's chief delegate told reporters this morning that South Korea will focus on securing that the family reunions take place as planned next week. The two Koreas are scheduled to resume the reunions from February 20th to the 25th, and if held, it'll be the first such event in more than 3 years. However, the reunion event won't be North Korea's top priority at today's meeting. Experts say Pyongyang will be seeking to stop the upcoming joint military exercises between Seoul and Washington, which is scheduled to begin at the end of this month. South Korea and the US say the drills are defensive in nature, but the North views them as a practice for war and has repeatedly called for the exercises to be cancelled. North Korea had earlier threatened to reconsider its agreement to hold the family reunions should the joint military exercises take place as planned. Now, some are also speculating that the officials may even be discussing a possible inter-Korean summit, but many say that the Koreas may not be able to reach an agreement today, but rather set a date for additional rounds of talks down the road. Guys?
Well, more talks and longer talks, always welcome news for the two Koreas. Thank you for that, Sung-hee, and do keep us updated throughout the day. That was our Unification Ministry correspondent Hwang Sung-hee with the latest on the first high-level talks between the two Koreas in 7 years.
Now, moving on to another relations, Korea-Japan relations reached a new low in December last year after Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe visited the controversial Yasukuni War Shrine, which Korea and China consider a symbol of Japan's past militarism.
On Wednesday, Korean lawmakers welcomed a former Japanese Prime Minister to speak on the tensions and the differences that divide the two nations. Our Kim Hyun-ji reports.
Korean lawmakers welcomed former Japanese Prime Minister Tomichi Murayama to the National Assembly on Wednesday, a man they believe presents a way forward in Korea-Japan relations. Murayama took office in 1994 as the first socialist prime minister in nearly 50 years. On August 15, 1995, marking the 50th anniversary of the end of World War II, Murayama publicly acknowledged that Japan caused tremendous suffering to the people of many countries, especially in Asia, during times of war. He expressed deep remorse for the victims of his country's past actions. Speaking to Korean lawmakers Wednesday, Murayama said the spirit of the landmark statement led to the Korea-Japan Joint Declaration of 1998, which called on the two countries to forge friendly and cooperative relations entering the 21st century. Saying that this framework triggered friendly bilateral exchanges of people and culture, Murayama urged the current Abe administration to respect the spirit of the Murayama statement.
After my term ended, the Liberal Democratic Party came to power. All LDP administrations adhered to the Murayama statement. Abe's first cabinet also did. Taking office for the second time, Abe told Parliament he would honor the statement, although there have been missteps.
Murayama also acknowledged that Japan's use of women as military sex slaves during war times damaged the dignity of women. Former Japanese Prime Minister Murayama also said the governments of Korea and Japan should begin discussing how to settle historical issues, including the compensation of Korean victims forced into sexual slavery by the Japanese military during World War II. He stressed that the spirit of the Murayama statement will be key to forging friendly relations between the two countries. Kim Hyun-ji, Arirang News.
And staying at the National Assembly, the ruling and opposition parties agreed on Wednesday afternoon to introduce a motion to dismiss the nation's justice and education ministers right after today's interpellation session wraps up at the National Assembly. The ruling Saenuri Party is staunchly opposed to the move, but the main opposition Democratic Party forced their hand by threatening to boycott the ongoing interpellation session if the bill was not introduced. But that may be as far as it gets. Since the Saenuri Party maintains a parliamentary majority, it's expected that the dismissal motion will not pass. The DP wants Justice Minister Hwang Sung-hee out over allegations that he interfered with an investigation into the National Spy Agency's meddling during the 2012 presidential election. Now, Education Minister Son Nam-soo has been under fire for controversial revisions to Korean history textbooks. Meanwhile, President Park Geun-hye has nominated Saenuri Party lawmaker Lee Ju-young as the new Minister of Oceans and Fisheries. Now, Lee, a four-time lawmaker, has served as the chairman of the National Assembly's Policy Committee and is currently heading the ruling party's Yeouido Institute. The presidential office of Cheongwon says that Lee will be the right person to stabilize the Oceans and Fisheries Ministry with his broad understanding of government affairs as a longtime lawmaker. The nomination comes less than a week after the former Oceans and Fisheries Minister Yoon Jin-suk was sacked for making inappropriate comments about a recent oil spill in waters off Korea's southern coast. A second gold medal and a new Olympic record. It doesn't get much better than that. Korean speed skater Lee Sang-hwa has rewritten history in Sochi, retaining her crown as the world's fastest in the women's 500-meter speed skating.
Well, East Gold is Korea's first medal in Sochi, and of course, many thought it would be improbable for anyone else but her to win. But actually, she was battling through sore knees to compete. Her big win, and the other winners at Winter Games we have lined up for you. We go over to our Olympics correspondent Song Ji-sun, who has a lot more. So Ji-sun, Lee Sang-hwa delivered as promised.
I know, Daniel, we waited days for that first medal from a Korean returning champ, and Lee did not disappoint, with each of her strides making history. After finishing her first race at number 1, Lee clocked in a 37.28 seconds in the second race, resetting an Olympic record there. Her combined time of 74.7 seconds for the two races is also a new Olympic record. Russia's Olga Fatkulina brought home silver, 0.4 of a second behind Lee, and Dutch skater Margot Boer finished third. With her win, Lee has etched her name as the first Asian speed skater to win 2 consecutive gold medals. But the third time was not the charm for American Shaun White. The two-time Olympic champion did not win a medal in his halfpipe in Sochi. White fell in his first attempt, and his second one wasn't so smooth either. He finished in disappointing fourth. But Swiss rider Iori Podlatikov, nicknamed iPod, executed a double cork or 1440, which is a 4 full twists packed inside of 2 flips. That sealed the deal and earned him a gold, with no other snowboarders attempting a trick that could outdo iPod's move. And Japanese teenager Ayumi Hirano takes home the silver with remarkable skill and flow, and another Japanese rider, Taku Hiraoka, won bronze, becoming the first Asian medals in the event. And back here in Seoul, reigning Olympic champion Kim Yeon-na boarded a plane bound for Sochi this afternoon. I was at the Incheon airport where Kim said she wasn't concerned all that much with other skaters and would simply focus on her program as she always has.
4 years have already passed and my second Olympics this year, but I'm not trying to think of it as my last competition, but more as just another competition. I'm trying not to be nervous. There are many factors that lead to a victory in figure skating, and all the skater can do is focus on their program and give it their best.
Regarding questions on her competitions and rivals, Kim reiterated she can't be concerned with how the other skaters fare, only with making the most of her program. Korea's Park So-yeon and Kim Hae-jin, teenage skaters who earned their Olympic tickets thanks to Kim Yeon-na's victory in the World Championships, flew on the same plane with Kim and said their goal is to execute clean programs. Kim Yeon-na will be staying at a hotel with their team and start practicing in Sochi tomorrow. The short program for latest singles is set for next Wednesday evening in Sochi. Now, while some like Kim Yeon-na are just now heading over to Sochi to begin their quest for the medals, others are already sporting medals around their necks. Let's take a look at the medal standings as of this evening. Now, Norway's on the top of the list with new gold medals from the cross country on day 5, while Canada and Germany trail with 4 gold medals each. The Netherlands added another gold in speed skating, staying in 4th, and Korea climbed up to top 10 thanks to Lee Sang-hwa's gold medal win. With that being said, will Wotebum continue the golden streak for Team Korea? The silver medalist from Vancouver in the men's 1,000 meter is back. Tune in at 11 p.m. Korea time to see if Korea can add another gold. And moving on, who will be the next queen in the snowboard halfpipe? The qualification round starts in an hour for snowboard's halfpipe with semis and final following later tonight. And in figure skating, the pair's free skating competition is also set for tonight, with Russia's world champions Tatiana Volzar and Maxim Trankov leading after the short program. Well, guys, I stayed awake the whole night yesterday, and it seems like I won't be going to bed too early tonight either. How about you guys, Danielle?
You know, I'm actually going to be looking more forward to this time tomorrow when you give us more catchy nicknames like iPod and Motorbum. And of course, we will all be awake, bloodshot eyes and whatnot, because we want to be a part of history in the making.
Right, stay tuned for more actions and games and the shows, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.
All right, thank you, Ji-sun, for that. And we will check back with you again at this hour tomorrow, hopefully with news of more medals for Team Korea.
Digging deeper, getting to the bottom of stories that impact your life. Talking with you on air and online. Connecting you with heroes and experts to help you understand the world's most pressing issues. News and current affairs at its best with Moon Gun-young and Daniel Che on Early Edition at 6.
Now shifting gears to the economy, Korean import prices rose by 2 Mixed signals out of the nation's labor market. Korea's unemployment rate inched up last month, but job creation sped up as more people ventured out into the job market amid signs of an economic recovery. Arirang News' Hwang Sung-hee has this report.
Hiring in Korea seems to be picking up amid signs that the domestic economic recovery is gaining momentum. Statistics Korea said Wednesday that the Korean economy added more than 700,000 jobs last month, the fastest pace of expansion in 12 years. That is also much larger than the gain of 560,000 in December last year and roughly 590,000 in November. The number of employed people in January stood at 24.7 million. The jobless rate, however, also inched up 0.1 percentage points last month from the previous year to 3.5%. The statistics agency attributes last month's rise in both job creation and the unemployment rate to a decline in the number of people who gave up looking for a job. It went on to say that more people were out searching for work amid stronger signs of an economic recovery. The domestic economy grew 2.8% in 2013 from the previous year, which represented a reversal of a 2-year slowdown and 2% growth in 2012. Korea's youth unemployment rate for people between the ages of 15 and 29, meanwhile, rose 1.2 percentage points last month from a year earlier to 8.7%. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
Korea's finance minister is reaching out to foreign companies and asking them to invest more in the nation. In return, he is promising to create one of the world's most investment-friendly environments. Finance Minister Hyun Oh-seok's comments came on Wednesday in a meeting with foreign business leaders in central Seoul. He pledged to improve transparency of laws and policies as a means to tear down the barriers that foreigners face while doing business here in Korea. Hyun added that the domestic economy is recently showing signs of recovery and said Korea has differentiated itself from other emerging economies thanks to sizable foreign reserves and a strong current account surplus. 2013, it has been a very good year for Korea's auto industry. The sector enjoyed a record-high trade surplus last year, and the upcoming year looks to be just as bright. Our Yoo-yeon explains why.
The domestic auto industry was Korea's star player in the export market last year. Korea's Trade Ministry said Wednesday that the sector's trade surplus hit a record high of $63 billion in 2013. That was the highest surplus among all the country's export categories, and it wasn't even close. The shipbuilding sector came in a distant second last year at $34 billion. Ever since 1984, when the nation began to break away from its heavy dependence on imports of auto parts, the auto trade surplus has grown by an average of 34% each year. The ministry attributes last year's record to a rise in quality competitiveness and enhanced brand value, along with the increased popularity overseas of Korea's large cars and recreational vehicles. The auto industry is expected to enjoy an even better year in 2014 on improving demand in and out of the country. The sector started off the year on a high note, with domestic sales of Korean automobiles in January gaining 4% on year. Outbound shipments, however, plunged by nearly 10% last month due to souring global sentiment over the U.S. tapering its quantitative easing. But looking at the whole year ahead, the Trade Ministry expects Korea to post a record high in exports on an upturn in global demand from Europe and emerging countries like China and Russia as they begin to recover from their economic slumps. Yoo-yeon, Arirang News.
Now, over in Washington, U.S. Federal Reserve Chief Janet Yellen has vowed to support the approach to stimulus tapering that her predecessor Ben Bernanke started to pursue before he stepped down last month. Making her first public comment since taking the helm, Yellen sounded optimistic about the prospects for the U.S. economy. Our Kim Young-gil reports.
In her first public appearance as Federal Reserve Board Chair on Tuesday, Janet Yellen told Congress that while the labor market recovery still has a way to go despite a drop in unemployment, the Fed will continue to reduce the support it's providing the U.S. economy through monthly bond purchases.
The recovery in the labor market is far from complete. Purchases are not on a preset course, and the committee's decisions about their pace will remain contingent on its outlook for the labor market and inflation, as well as its assessment of the likely efficacy and costs of such purchases.
Analysts say Yellen's testimony signals a continuation of the policies started under her predecessor, Ben Bernanke. Under Bernanke, the Fed bought trillions of dollars worth of bonds to drive long-term borrowing costs lower. In December of last year, it started to scale back its stimulus program. The new Fed chief also noted the recent turbulence in the world's financial markets.
We have been watching closely the recent volatility in global financial markets. Our sense is that at this stage, these developments do not pose a substantial risk to the U.S. economic outlook.
Yellen also assured investors by saying interest rates would remain very low. U.S. markets reacted positively to her comments, with all three main share indexes closing over 1% higher after her remarks. The Dow Jones Industrial Average closed up almost 200 points as investors welcomed Yellen's steady tone. Kim Young-gen, Arirang News.
Well, the Korean government has been trying to boost the nation's low birth rate through various measures for years now, but they're still waiting on the fruits of their labor. The Health Ministry said Tuesday that the birth rate for 2013 is estimated to have come in at 1.18, which would represent a drop from 1.3 the previous year. Now, the OECD average is 1.74 children born to a woman over her lifetime. Since 2005, the government has been investing an average of about $9.5 billion annually to bring up the fertility rate. The efforts have ranged from lengthening nursery school hours and introducing measures to lower the financial burden of raising children.
Korea is celebrating the completion of its second research station in Antarctica. Why? Because this makes Korea part of an elite club. Our Kim Ji-yeon reports.
Korea is preparing for a new period of polar exploration with the completion of its second research station in Antarctica. A ceremony was held for the Changbogo station on Wednesday at Terra Nova Bay in northern Victoria Land. The new base will be able to accommodate up to 60 people with 16 buildings spread across a 4.5 square kilometer plot of land. The new station will be a home base for geographic research, including the study of meteorites and glaciers. And the Korean government says the work done there can help promote scientific research at home.
지구상의 마지막 미개척지인 남극은 기후변화와 해양 생태계의 비밀을 간직한 자연과학의 거대 실험장이자 수산자원과 에너지 자원 등 막대한 자원을 보유한 기회의 대륙입니다.
Antarctica is known to be brewing with humankind's most important natural resources, including oil, metals, and copper. For that reason, the frozen continent is being looked at for exploration by many countries. For now, mining and territorial claims are prohibited on the continent under the Antarctic Treaty of 1959, but that will be up for review in the year 2048, which is why some countries may try to angle for a piece of the Antarctic pie before then. Korea's first station, the King's Haejong, was built in the western part of the continent in 1988, mainly conducting research on marine ecosystems. The United States was first to establish a station on the continent in 2008, and China has 4 stations in total, with a 5th planned for next year. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Well, time now to get a check on the weather conditions with our Michelle Park at the Weather Center. Now, Michelle, the warm weather in Sochi, I hear, is giving the athletes an unexpected challenge.
That's right, and it's having a real effect on the games. The women's alpine ski practice was even canceled.
Well, tomorrow is another day. We are staying ever optimistic. How about tomorrow? Is a cool down expected in Sochi?
Not quite. The temperature is actually going to rise even higher tomorrow, hitting up to 17 degrees with partly cloudy skies. It's a definite problem because the huge temperature difference over the mountains are making the snow very unstable. Now going over to Korea, Seoul will be similar to today on Thursday. However, heavy snow is once again forecast in Gangwon-do province and the mountainous areas of Gyeongsang-bukdo, which is going to be from tonight through Friday. Now going over to our readings, morning temperature is very cold. Seoul will start off the morning at -2 degrees and reach 6 in the afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Daegu and Busan will peak to 6 and 7 degrees respectively. Now down onto Jeju Island, we can expect light showers. Daejeon will get up to 6, Dokdo hits 1, and Mount Kumgang stays -8. Well, that's it for now. I'm Michelle Park, and back to you guys.
Well, thank you for that, Michelle. And that brings us to the end of our newscast. Thank you for watching. This has been Daniel Chen.
And I'm Moon Gon-young. Thank you as always for being here with us. Have a wonderful rest of the evening and do stay awake and watch the games. Enjoy the Olympics and we'll see you right back here same time tomorrow. Good night.